DJ Nubis here with you on the Metal Time Radio podcast with another episode of Poetic Carnage. Episode 2 with my co-host Edgar Allan Poet and special guest Bronco Wave, sir. CJ, thank you for coming and joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And as usual, we will kick off our first part of the segment of our NFL talk with our rants about our teams. And since we have Mr. Wave here, a fellow Bronco fan, we'll let Poet go first with his Steeler rant, and then we'll just chime in with our insults to Poet's team as we can. So go ahead, Mr. Poet. What do you got for us this week?
So I was thinking about my rant, and I didn't want to rant about Matt Canada anymore. Everyone knows he's a shitty offensive coordinator, and he's the second coming of Pat Shurmur. I didn't want to necessarily rant about all the injuries, so I'm going to rant about, it'll be a quick one, Mike Tomlin. And I'm going to say one nice thing about Mike Tomlin and one bad thing about Tomlin. The bad thing about Tomlin, he hired Matt Canada. He kept him on for another season. He decided that was a good idea. It's horrible. I think sometimes he's too loyal. It is what it is. But this is the other part of Matt Canada and the good thing that reflects on Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin believes in stability. And he believes in stability because the Steelers hire a new head coach once every 30 freaking years. And historically, it's worked well for the franchise. A lot of Steeler fans, especially this season, have been calling for Tomlin's head. In 2007, his rookie year, he went 10-6. Last season, he went 9-7-1. In between there, you have a bunch of winning seasons, averaging around at 10.5 wins and 3 8-8 years. It's really easy to call for a head coach to be fired when you're accustomed to doing at least pretty well every single year. And year after year, we see all kinds of hot head coaching candidates come into the league and flame out. So right now, does anybody want the Chargers head coach? Could I interest anybody in Hackett? Could I interest anybody in Wilkes from a couple years ago in Arizona? And that's my point, so on and so forth. No, I don't think that Tomlin is any longer a top 5 elite head coach like he used to be. But when I scour the NFL and I see all these bum head coaches who can't even figure out how to use clock management at the end of the game like Madden players do and are forced to know if they play competitively, I'll take Mike Tomlin any day of the week. So to my fellow Steeler fans out there, Tomlin can be frustrating. His offensive philosophies make us all want to fucking wash our mouth out with a revolver. But at the end of the day, it's better to have Tomlin than to roll the dice and pick up the next scrub head coach that'll make you frustrated and waste 2 years of the franchise's time. That's my rant.
Yeah, I think Tomlin is facing kind of a similar thing that Belichick is, because now that Brady's gone, he's got to work with Mac Jones and now Zippy or whatever the fuck his name is. So Belichick's got to prove that he can repeat what he did with Brady. And I think Tomlin, having Big Ben, has to do the same thing with Pickett, which I like Pickett a lot. I mean, I really like that quarterback. But it'll be interesting if Tomlin can actually win with him if Pickett turns out to be a good quarterback. It's like hand in hand. But
young Romo will develop. I have decreed it.
Is that what you're saying? You're saying it's Tony Romo?
he if you watch him play, he plays a lot like good Romo. I would say, like, good enough arm strength but not great, good mobility but not great, ability to read the field but a bit of a gunslinger. That's Pickett in a nutshell. That's pretty much young Romo.
I did see the last game. I forgot that he actually was starting. He had like 3 interceptions. I didn't get to see the game. So did you see any of how he played?
It was not a good game. That is all.
I mean, was he like making bad reads or was it just good defense?
Yes. He had some rookie quarterback moments, and it wasn't like his first game when he came in for spot duty where 2 were off of the wide receiver's hands and 1 was a Hail Mary. The game that you're talking about, he didn't play well. There's just no way to put it. He just kind of stunk it up.
Any comments, Wave? Any opinions?
I have a question on the Steelers for you, Poet. Going into this season, when I was looking at my fantasy draft, I was all in on Najee Harris. That's not the guy I was going to draft. I was like gung-ho thinking Najee Harris. Then my draft got here and Derrick Henry fell. I was like, well, I really like Harris. I'm going to get Derrick Henry. And now I'm really glad I did that. Like, what happened to Harris? Is he just bad or
Matt Canada happened. So
he didn't want to talk about him. Now you're forcing him to talk about him.
The way that Matt Canada does his running plays, he likes to do motion to bring defenders into the box, because he thinks that if he does that and calls enough jet sweeps, they're going to break a big one. It is not. It's not been proven effective for obvious reasons. So running the ball with Najee was dead on arrival with our crappy O-line anyway. And then last season, Najee caught a lot of passes, and we've moved away from that, and we're letting all of our great playmaking wide receivers, who can take a slant, 80 yards. Now we're running a lot of underneath routes, so there's less action for Najee Harris there as well. He's blocking a lot. So much to my chagrin, in my opinion, top 10 running back is basically a glorified blocker in a 1970s offensive scheme.
Oh yeah, you remember I think I sent you the link. When they were talking about like Judy being traded, I saw Chase Claypool's name come up. What was your opinion on that?
I was like, I bet he starts playing better than he did. Chase Claypool, with all the drops, and then last season on that game-winning drive, when he catches the ball and starts celebrating and drops it on the field as opposed to throwing it to the refs so they can hike the ball faster, he was in Tomlin's doghouse. Ironically, they sent him out there to announce the pick in the draft for George Pickens, which I thought was absolutely, utterly hilarious. He has decent chemistry with Trubisky, and he's starting to play better with Pickett. So if that guy can just not be a jackass, he's a wonderful player. So I would like him to not be a jackass and go back to being a wonderful player. If not, we'll find another receiver. It feels like every year we have 4 of them.
So your prediction for the Steelers-Eagles this weekend?
Have you seen Saving Private Ryan?
Yeah.
We're on the bad end of the bullets. That's my prediction.
All right, time for my Broncos and Wade's Broncos. I've got a quick video. It's about 8 minutes. Our boy Stinky appeared on some show with Keyshawn Johnson and a couple other guys, and he's talking a little about Russ and the problems there. A lot of what Schreier said, I agree with, so I'm going to go ahead and play that real quick for us, and then we'll comment and go from there.
On the app, and we are joined now by a man who told us not long ago, before the season started, Broncos ain't a Russell Wilson away. They ain't even an Aaron Rodgers away, let alone a Russell Wilson away. Mark Schlereth, 3-time Super Bowl champion. What's up, Stink?
How are you guys? I think it's funny, Max, that you got to separate that. You push more on the app. Like more on the app.
Yes.
Right? That's instead of pushing moron. Did they have a moron button on the app?
Oh, they have a moron button. No, that would be for me. That would be for me, the moron button. Yeah.
Yeah, no, then I could use an app. If they have a moron button on it, then I'm in.
Yeah, how do you use this thing? Oh, the moron button. Yeah. Perfect.
Oh, there it is. The moron button.
That's a great idea. You should patent that.
Yeah.
So, Stink, how you been? You been good, huh?
I've been really good. Yeah, things are great. I mean, other than I had my yearly physical the other day, and my prostate exam was more pleasurable than watching the Broncos play on Monday night. I will tell you that.
I'm gonna tell you every time the Broncos play primetime, I'm like, oh God. And I have Russell in my fantasy. Right. I got him in my fantasy league. He just destroys me every time.
It has been hard. It's been hard to watch. I mean, listen. There are many problems. I mean, there are problems all over the place. But he's playing like he was a rookie. I mean, he is playing like he doesn't see the field. He doesn't throw with anticipation. He doesn't understand blitz and blitz pickup and where he's not picked up. I mean, it has been a regression. I keep thinking that. I'm going to have to get all my radio listeners here in Denver, Colorado. I'm going to have to get everybody. We're going to have to make a mission to the Area 51 to find out how he was abducted and like where Russell Wilson is right now.
Look, now, Steve, we've been talking, quite a bit about your comments with us earlier in the year about Aaron Rodgers and whatnot. Did Aaron Rodgers make the right decision staying in Green Bay and not teaming up with Nathaniel Hackett in Denver?
Yeah, I think hindsight being 2020, you can look at that and you can always speculate that it would have been better. But I don't know that. It doesn't solve the issues. It doesn't solve the issues that receivers aren't getting open one-on-one, and it doesn't solve the issue in Denver that they really aren't very good up front. I think none of those issues get solved. It's really interesting, kind of the juxtaposition, Key, of having really good receivers and have a quarterback make good receivers, great receivers, and then having somebody who's special. For the most part, I think most of the wide receiver position is dependent on having a quarterback that can get you the ball and having a group up front that can block and give that quarterback time. But then there are those special guys. There are those guys that are just incredible, like the Devontae Adams of the world. And what I think ends up happening to you is, as a quarterback, you're like, okay, I'm going to let the scheme take me where it's supposed to take me on first and second down, or in situations that aren't critical. But when a critical situation comes, I'm going to go to the guy I have chemistry with, the guy that I know, even though they're double teaming that guy, he'll be open. He's always open. And there's a comfort level there. And there's almost a take all the mental anguish off your plate, because now you're just looking for that matchup. Now you're just saying, hey man, I don't have to read anything. I'm going to find that dude and I'm going to convert, and there's a security blanket there. And neither of these quarterbacks have that guy. And I think that's a huge issue.
Yeah. Mark Slair, 3-time Super Bowl champion, host of Slair and Evans on 104.3 The Fan in Denver, joined us this morning on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. Mark, you won 3 Super Bowls. You've been to Pro Bowls. You've done it all. You played. You played hurt. You've been in stadiums. I don't think you've ever been booed in Denver, but that, you can tell me whether or not you've ever been booed by the fans for having a stinky game. See how I did that?
Oh,
yeah.
But look, so we keep hearing.
You just laughed at your own joke so hard.
It was a bum joke. I just had to get a laugh out of somebody. Damn, let me enjoy this moment, please. One time. No, but look, Steve. So we keep hearing former teammates of Russell Wilson's in Seattle talk not in, happy, glowing remarks about him as a teammate. And we also, and you've been in this league and we can tell who's side-eyeing who and who is happy with who. We also have seen Denver Bronco players kind of giving, Russell Wilson a little bit of the side-eye at times. Is he starting to wear thin with some of the teammates in the locker room?
Yeah, I would imagine. I think it's obviously what you're getting when he comes in, right? He's got the quirky, let's ride, and he's just a little bit. Okay, we get it. You're Mr. Positivity all the time, and everything is happy and all that, and that's fine when you're winning. But the tone deafness, I think, is what gets to people. Like, hey, we just had one of the world. I mean, we set the league back 50 years in the way we played on Thursday night against the Indianapolis Colts, and the next day I'm releasing my new.
Yeah, so it's kind of cut off there. But Wade, you were mentioning on the forum that when the team's winning, they tend to overlook stuff like that, the airplane stuff and all that. But Mark apparently says it's the same thing. So when you're losing, those things get magnified and just become a bit of an annoyance for the rest of your team. So do you have any more thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, Schlereth was saying pretty much all the same stuff I was saying. You kind of heard the whispers when we traded for him. Like, there was some stuff out there how, he didn't get along with his teammates in Seattle or didn't get along with his coaches. But they won. I think before his last year when he got hurt there, they had a winning record. I think every year he was there. So I think it's one of those things that kind of got swept under the rug and never really got mentioned nationally. But now that we're seeing what happens when they lose, it feels like he's gotten even worse. He's gotten cornier, and like Schlereth said, he just has no awareness of himself, and like how people react to that. And I think his teammates are getting sick of him. I saw got leaked on Twitter that like Bradley Chubb's brother was liking tweets about how like Broncos teammates don't like him. So like I'm sure he probably heard that from Bradley. So and I think you're kind of starting to see some of the cracks there. And I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm down bad right now. I'm sure it's better.
Yeah. Yeah, I keep thinking back to his injury last year, and I remember it was something to do with his finger.
Yeah.
And I said when we traded it for him, I said, well, my biggest concern was whether or not he was going to be rid of the injury, like altogether. And I didn't imagine that when he came in that there'd be all these other problems, not with just the team, but with him. Do you think the finger might be still an issue? Because I think about some of his accuracy issues right now. Sometimes he looks great, but other times it's just not there. Is it just a matter of chemistry? Poet, you can chime in too if you need to. Do you think it's just because we didn't work together in preseason enough? I heard Ink on the board. He was saying that, and I don't know how true it is, but he was saying that we were running plays in off season and preseason that we're not even doing now. So why would that even be happening?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a little bit of everything. I don't know if it's the finger from last year because I think they were saying he had like a shoulder injury this year or something with his arm. So that could be part of it. But there's been at least 2 plays this year I can remember. There was the one where he had Hamler wide open for the touchdown, didn't see him over the middle. I think 2 weeks ago there was like a big third or fourth down where Dulcich is open right over the middle and you just didn't see him. So he's just like I don't think injuries account for the fact that he's just not seeing guys who are wide open. And then when he's missing on those deep throws, I think, maybe that's an injury. Maybe I think it definitely didn't help that we didn't play anyone in the preseason. Like I think Hackett messed up doing that. There's obviously no chemistry. There's been plays where receiver will run one route and he'll throw it the other way, and there's like no one close to it. So I think it's a
Yeah,
little
I
bit of
agree with Mark.
everything.
He was saying that he's playing like a rookie, and I agree. He's just not really going through his reads. The tight end with Dulcich, like he's not. If he's right there in front of you, just hit him. Like it's for whatever reason, Russ is looking for the bigger play, which I don't know why, but take what the defense is going to give you. If they're going to give you a 10-yarder that your tight end, hit it. If Hamler's coming through a hot route and you're having problems with your offensive line getting protection, you got to hit him. Like just, I know he dropped one earlier or whatever, but you got to hit him. You got to keep going there. Poet, what do you think?
I think, well, when he hurt his finger last year, it was week 1, it was off of Aaron Donald's helmet. And immediately he started doing those horrible commercials where he was showing his finger workouts to fix his finger because he just has to be corny. And it was bad. I think that one of his issues is everything that he does shows up his teammates. Like the office that he apparently doesn't let anyone else in, that he negotiated, or I don't get jet lag, that's why I'm working out while my teammates are sleeping. Or the clip for me, it wasn't even the sideline stuff with Melvin Gordon staring at him. Who cares what Melvin Gordon thinks? He fumbles all the time. Like it's like, Melvin, you don't get to have an opinion. The only thing you get to bitch about is that they didn't tell you that you weren't going to start in the second half because that was unprofessional. That's all you get to bitch about. Hold on the ball and then you get to talk again.
Yeah, that was really weird.
Yeah, the wide receivers.
And I don't find myself feeling bad for Gordon too much, but I'm sitting there saying to myself, and this is a problem with Hackett, I think, and this is why people are saying, well, he's just too nice of a guy. It's like, you're the guy that's in charge, man. You got to tell these people why they're not playing. And it's
right. And you're not doing them a favor by, like, when a guy finds out that he's not playing because somebody goes in to start the second half, that's not being nice either. It just reeks of being non-confrontational. But it's Melvin Gordon, so fuck him, right? But, it's all, like with the clip where it was at halftime and Russ was standing out there trying to greet guys as they're going in the locker room and no one gave a shit and they were just walking by him. Like, his teammates don't like him. And, and that's fine. Most of Tom Brady's teammates don't like him either. Like, you don't have to like a leader to respect them or play hard for him. I think that the irritation that he causes people off the field is compounded with how bad he has been on the field. He's missing guys who are wide open. He's missing reads. The most egregious thing is how many times have you heard an analyst say, when they send an extra rusher, when they send a blitzer, that's the quarterback's guy, and he's not sliding the line or changing the hot route, and then he gives up back-to-back sacks. I want to say it was against the Chargers, where the sack was on him. There were a couple times where on live TV they're talking about one of the tackles. Oh, he gave up a sack, and it's Russ sitting back there in the pocket for 5 or 6 seconds, holding on to the ball too long. He's been an abject disaster. I think that he's trying to play for an MVP. It's been reported for years that he wants an MVP because he feels like that's one of the things that will cement his legacy. And we talked about, like, with the Bills last year and the start of this year, playing for an award is typically not the best way to go. And so I don't think Russ is washed. I think Russ needs to have a heart-to-heart with himself. And I think that whoever your coach is next year, and it's not going to be Hackett, they're going to have a tall job trying to, bring him back down. Because, like, if you listen to what guys like Shannon Sharp are saying about Russ, like, he cares about being a celebrity, the clothing line, all that stuff, not being a quarterback, that's not going to fly in Denver. Like, the fans won't accept it.
Yeah, and I think that whatever coach, whether it's Hackett or not, they need to speed up his thought process. So when Manning was here, our line was good, but it wasn't like great. And there were times that Manning would get crushed and he'd have to go do the fainting goat thing. And it's like, but the difference is that Manning understood that once he hiked that ball, he had to get rid of it fast, whether it's screens, slants, Wes Welker, whatever. For whatever reason, Russ is, again, just holding on the ball and taking 5 steps back and thinking he's got all day. He doesn't. And I mean, the line's not great, but you can't expect him to sit there and hold everybody for like days. You just can't expect that. So somewhere along the line, Hackett's got to take control of this team
and do roll, like, help Russ. Like, stop doing this. I'm going to treat you like Aaron Rodgers. Well, he's not Aaron Rodgers. He plays differently. So call it I feel like, honestly, you could take old Shanahan and have him call plays and be like, naked bootleg. And that would just, like, or didn't you guys have a run pass option one time where it actually kind of changed the drive because it forced the defense to react for once? Like, Russ, obviously, he's not a willing runner anymore, but just the threat of his scrambling and legs does so much for his game. And a big part of that blame has to go on Hackett for his system and being married to it and calling plays that way. It's not all on Russ, but he makes it hard, man. I'm sorry y'all have to watch this.
Dude, it's abysmal. It's just bad, dude. Like, and of course, I watched last week a little bit when Rippon came in, and I'm like, but I realize it's more of Hackett's scripted plays. So Hackett, for about a quarter and a half, is creative. He's doing the right things. The team is moving the ball. And it didn't matter who was quarterback. Rippon was doing okay. He wasn't great, but he was doing okay with what was going on. But then after that quarter and a half, Hackett just seems to lose himself. Like, he just reverts back to what we've been seeing the last 5 or 6 years with the offense. It's like he doesn't know what to do. He just throws his hands up, and it's like, what happened? Everyone else is making adjustments to what we're doing, but we can't make adjustments for whatever reason.
He shouldn't be. I will say this for Hackett. I think Andy Reid is probably one of the greatest offensive coaches ever, right? Multiple times, like at least once in Philly and once in KC, he was calling plays that wasn't working. He gave up play calling duty. The offense did better. And I remember, I don't know if you remember this conversation, Wade, but I remember talking with you like 5 or 6 years ago about, I want to say it was whenever it was that Vance Joseph got hired, because it looked like he was going to be an offensive guy and it ended up being VJ. That, like, if you're a play caller and it's not working, you give yourself enough time to see, am I just having a bad game, whatever. Am I just on a cold streak? But eventually you give it up. Like, if you've hired good assistant coaches, you should have somebody else who can call plays. Do you think it would matter if he gave up play calling? Like, if he gave up play calling duties, would that get you at least slightly optimistic about the offense?
I mean, I guess it can't hurt at this point. He doesn't seem to be able to do, more than 2 things at once. Like, it seems like he's calling plays, he forgets about the play clock or forgets about game strategy. So it probably wouldn't hurt. It doesn't seem like we really have any experienced coordinators on our staff. As some people on the message board mentioned Clint Kubiak, which I mean, I guess that'd be okay, but I don't know. But
He
speaking
was
of,
really good in Minnesota. As much as I
yeah,
dislike the name Kubiak, he was really good in Minnesota.
but one I saw a really good stat on the forum this week talking about how he scripts the first quarter and a half pretty well usually. Apparently, in the entire season, the Broncos have scored 3 points in the third quarter all season. Like that's historically bad. Like I don't even believe it's a real stat, but I think back, I don't remember any game where we had a good third quarter. So, like, how do you have 3 points in the third quarter all season? Like,
With
what are you
that
doing
kicker
at
too, it's not like y'all have a scrub field goal kicker.
like what are you doing at halftime?
Well, that's another issue, man, because for whatever reason, sometimes McManus, dude, he just has a brain fart. I don't know why, but he just does. Sometimes he hits those pretty easily, and other times I'm holding my breath.
Yeah, I don't
He's
blame him for the one he missed last week because it was like 40, 50 mile an hour winds. Like that was a tough one, but
Right.
yeah, I don't know.
All right. Well, let's get into our NFL power rankings. So I didn't really get a chance to look at them as far as like we used to do top 10. We started out doing top 10, but we're going to cut to 5 just because it takes up a
it
little
took
bit.
an hour and 10 minutes.
Trying to talk about what these teams are doing and whatnot. So I don't really have a problem with the top 5 in the NFL power rankings, but I'm probably a little bit different in terms of where I'm putting them. So I'll just go around the room. Wave, have you looked at the power rankings at all?
Yeah, I made the top 5.
Okay, cool. So we'll just go around the room. We'll start with our number 5 pick, and I'll start. I picked the Cincinnati Bengals. I still think that they are better than what their record is showing right now. But clearly they've been struggling a little bit, but I think they're starting to pick it up and get it together. Joe's starting to look back to his old form. What about you, Poet? Where are you at with this?
I have the Chargers at 5. I think the
Wow.
record that they have with all those injuries is incredible. I think that they're going to be one of those teams where if they make the playoffs, and I think that they will, and that roster gets back healthy, they're going to be a real tough out. And I put them over teams like the Cowboys and the Giants, mostly because I think they have a better roster, especially when healthy. They play tougher teams, and they have the better quarterback. So, it would be easy to slot in the Giants or Cowboys in the 5. Neither of them are in my power ranking, so I have the Chargers controversially at 5.
So one quick point on Cincinnati. I don't know if you guys saw Jamar Chase is out 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh,
Yeah,
is
that just broke. Yeah, hip
Oh,
Hip
wow.
injury.
injury. So that might
There
hurt the
goes my
Bengals a
power
little bit.
rankings.
Hey, they still have Higgins and Boyd.
Boyd, yeah.
That's the fucking thing. They have a lot of firepower.
Yeah, they do.
Unfortunately.
Mix is
So-
on it too.
So Poet just shit over my number 5, but I have the Giants there. I definitely agree. Maybe they haven't played the toughest schedule, but I mean they've only lost one game. Daniel Jones, he's not a great quarterback, but I feel like coming into the season, all the fans in New York were ready to get rid of him. Like it seemed like he was on his way out, and he's done okay this year. I feel like he's kind of like Jimmy G there now. He kind of keeps it afloat. Saquon Barkley is back to being best running back in football again, probably.
Daniel still runs too. He's still running. Like that's a good asset for them because when Barkley's not doing something, he is. And it's like I watched him last week. I'm like, he's killing the Jags. He's just like running on them.
Yeah, and I know in today's NFL, the running back's not as important, but he's kind of carrying that team. So I think as long as he stays healthy and keeps playing like that,
And
I don't
it's
know.
good
I
to
think they
see
can
him.
keep winning. So I got the Giants at 5.
Yeah, it's good to see Saquon healthy because he's one of those rare talents that's worth taking early in the first round, and it's hard to root against a guy who's had such bad luck and worked so hard. And I do agree with you. If he's healthy, he probably is the best running back in football. You could argue a few guys, but he's a stud.
Between him and Derrick Henry, easily.
Yeah.
Between those two. My number 4, and this will make Poet happy, is Philadelphia. I have to kind of acknowledge where they're at. I hate Jalen Hurts. I think he's a scrub, but The reality is they are what they are, and I can't argue that point anymore. They are not having much trouble beating people, and they using a good running game, good defense, and Jalen's playing smart. He's actually improved a lot with his passing, which is always the biggest key for a lot of these guys for me when it comes to these hybrids, is whether or not they can transition from college to the NFL by focusing more on their passing game and using their scrambling abilities secondary, a la Steve Young and John Elway and all that. So number 4 is the Eagles. Poet.
I have the Bengals at 4. They I hate saying this. They have a top 5 quarterback. They have, in my opinion, even though he's just out, the best wide receiver in football. Mixon's top 10 back seems about right. Is that fair? The line is somewhat getting better. It's not a great line, even though they poured a ton of investment in it. But I think they're starting to use that infamous term. They're starting to gel. The defense is pretty good, and ultimately, they have a good coach, and I put them in that category of when the playoffs starts, no one's going to want to play them, and they very well could have the best big play offense in football, as well as having a lot of possession-type players as well. I can't recall what their tight end's name is, but he's done a decent job of replacing the guy that they lost to the Jets in free agency. I want to say is where he went. So they're just a really complete team, and they are better than what their record is. And again, if you put them in the NFC, they would be the first seed or the second seed pretty easily. So I'm pretty low on the NFC this season.
Wave.
So my number 4 team features my favorite player in the NFL, Dak Prescott. Had the Dallas Cowboys there.
Mississippi State.
That's right. So he was injured for 5 games, and they went 4-1 in those 5 games without him. And Cooper Rush isn't very good. He's a game manager, but he's really not a very good player. And they got him back last week, and they won. I think if Dak is healthy and plays the rest of the season, they have a great defense. Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard both been doing really well running the ball. They have good receivers. I think if Dak is healthy and plays as well as he can, that honestly should be one of the most complete teams in the league. So I think people are still kind of sleeping on them a little bit because Dak's only played 2 games, but so I kind of have an asterisk there. If he gets hurt again, they might be screwed. But I think their potential and their ceiling with Dak, I think they could be one of the best teams in the league this year, and I think they could win the NFC even. Philly, they're undefeated, but the NFC is kind of weak at the top compared to the AFC. So I don't see any reason why the Cowboys couldn't contend to go to the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, I didn't put him in my top 5, but I'm keeping an eye on him because I do know that Dak kind of adds this other dimension to the team that Cooper doesn't. So it'll be interesting to see how they play down the stretch. If really Dak just runs into a lot of bad luck, man. Those injuries have become at the worst fucking time for that team. Every time they go into a year, they're expected to do great things, and it's like he gets hurt, and then they're like, all right, well, my number 3 will surprise a few. It is the Giants. And I kind of agree with Wave. I think that Daniel Jones is actually playing within his more confined space, a little bit more comfortable. He's utilizing the run game more, the defense more, probably not pushing the ball as much as he used to early on. He may not be a great quarterback. I don't think he's really worth the first-round pick they gave him, but if he can help you win games, that's all it really matters at the end of the day. And right now, they are strong. They're winning games that I didn't think they'd run. I thought for sure the Jaguars would beat them, but yeah, they proved me wrong. Poet?
Chiefs, they are frustrating because they probably should have beaten the Bills last week. They have the best or the second best quarterback in the NFL. They have the best or the second best head coach. Frank Clark just got suspended. I don't know what he did. He's gone for, I think, 2 games. So that does ding them a little bit. They need to add another pass rusher. But they've managed to replace the Tyreek Hill production with an all hands on deck approach. Travis Kelce is still good. It feels like he's like a cheat code, honestly. I don't think I view them as a Super Bowl contender. I don't think they're going to go to the Super Bowl. I think that essentially that their roster is pretty good, and it's propped up by Mahomes and Reed. I think the other issue that they have, and they've somewhat addressed it this season, but they've always, whenever they struggle with a too high safety defense, which has become the norm, they go back and they don't have a power running back that can punish that scheme. And I was hoping that they were going to take a running back in the second or third round who had some power to him to try to beat up that scheme. We've been running the ball. It feels like a little bit better this season, so maybe that'll pay dividends in the playoffs. But they're too good to ignore.
I'm with Poet here. I had the Chiefs at number 3. There was some news today. They traded for Kadarius Toney, the receiver from the Giants. He's a really talented guy. He's been injured a lot, but if he can get healthy, he might be that missing piece they need on offense. Like he showed some flashes in New York when he was healthy. He's just been hurt a lot, so it's kind of throwing a Hail Mary with him. But if he's healthy, that'd be a good acquisition. But yeah, I mean the Chiefs, they're solid. Mahomes, like you said, is top 2 quarterback. They're kind of weird sometimes. Like they'll just occasionally have a weird game. Like against the Colts this year, they lost to them. Like
that was horrible. Like the brain
can't put them in the top 2 just because like their ceiling when they're playing like their best, they could be the best team in the league. But every once in a while, they just have one of those weird games. They lose to a team they shouldn't like that. So
yeah, it's been kind of a weird year like that, just all the way around. Just a lot of teams that are dropping football games. I'm like, because the Packers aren't looking that great. I mean, I hate to sit there and say that Denver's lucky because there's other teams like us having trouble, but it's just how you look when you play. Like some teams are just losing games; they're not really looking shitty doing it like we are.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's strange when KC drops certain games like that. But at number 2, that's who I have, the Chiefs. I think with a guy like Mahomes, you're always in it. I can't really put him any lower right now just because I always fear Mahomes, whatever he can do. He has so many weapons to work with. The only thing I would say is I think they do miss Tyreek Hill a little bit. They do have Hardman and Schuster, but I haven't really seen those guys turn it up quite as much as they should.
Schuster is frustrating because he will go on a stretch in a quarter, not even a whole ass game, a quarter, where he just kills. It doesn't matter who the cornerback is. He just kills you, and he looks like Chris frickin' Carter. All he does is touchdowns or first downs, and then just completely disappears until like another random drive. He was the guy that Pittsburgh thought was going to replace Antonio Brown, and that didn't work out. But they have MVS and him and Hardman, and it feels like there's enough talent there for someone to be open, and Mahomes can scramble around. Tony, I'm gonna have to look. That's a good point about Tony, though, Wave, because I remember when he came out, he had a lot of hype. The guy's an absolute physical specimen. So maybe he'll be Josh Gordon for them again, where zero impact, or maybe he'll make it. But yeah, the 2 ranking for the Chiefs is pretty fair.
What's your number 2?
I have the Eagles. I wanted to put them at 1. I love Jalen Hurts. He's fixed his mechanics. That did so much for him. He fixed his mechanics. He went and got the quarterback coach. He's making better decisions. I remember reading the article where he was talking about how a lot of his picks came from he made the right read. He just threw a shitty ball. And I think that the mechanics have done a lot for him. Their RPO is so difficult to defend. Their weakness is I want to see what happens when they play from a deficit. I want to see what happens when they play down 2 scores, especially later in the game when the clock becomes their enemy. They have a Super Bowl roster. They have arguably the best roster in football. They just added Robert Quinn from Chicago, who's still a very good player for a 4th rounder. So they have another pass rusher. For the Super Bowl prospects, one thing that really hurts them, other than they've not played down before, this team does have some holdovers from the Super Bowl. Is a lot of their players on offense have not even played in a playoff game or won a playoff game. So it's hard to just skip all those steps. It's hard to Cincinnati Bengal it. But, right now they are killing people. I almost, Sunday is going to be a hard day for yours truly. Not going to enjoy that particular game, but they are my number 2.
Well, though, this year's been crazy, so Pittsburgh might just surprise them. You don't ever know.
Yeah, we'll beat them, but lose the shitty-ass Jets or the Patriots.
Wave.
I think Poet and I are going to have the same top 3. I have Philly number 2 as well. Just to start off on them, they have 2 elite Mississippi State players in their defense, Fletcher Cox and Darius Slay. Like, probably each one of those is probably top 3 in the league at their position.
Slay's the best. Slay's my, not to interrupt you, but Slay's my DPOY thus far. He's been crazy.
Yeah, he's awesome. Like, he's so good.
Isn't he the guy that took back the fumble last year on Gordon?
I think it is. Yeah. Yeah. He is. He had the fumble 6.
Yeah.
In their offense, they have 2.
By the way, the Lions were like, we don't need to pay that guy. He's not good enough.
Fucking idiots.
Yeah.
The Lions are always going to be fucking trash.
Yeah.
But in Philly's offense, they have 2, possibly elite receivers. AJ Brown's awesome. Devontae Smith is really coming along this year. Dallas Goedert has been one of the better tight ends in the league this year. Miles Sanders has been good. I think they're just a complete team. Like, they really don't have any holes in the roster. The biggest question mark probably is still Jalen Hurts. Like what's he gonna do when they go deep in the playoffs? But I think for now, they're as complete a team top to bottom as anybody.
Well, I think Poet's right, though. I think from what I've observed, I haven't seen every game that the Eagles have played, but I can tell that Jalen's looked a lot better. He feels more comfortable back there. He's making better reads. It just seems like night and day from the last couple of years that I've seen him play, that he just looks a little bit better and more polished. So I don't know how long it will last. This could be one of those Josh Allen things where the guy just takes 2 or 3 years to finally get it, and then he's good. We'll see how it goes. Usually, sometimes some players just go 1 year and then they're back to what they were doing.
He was worth that 3rd-round pick, though. That I will like.
Well, they got faith in him for sure. So I mean, they kept him around. They didn't bother going for any quarterbacks in the draft. They just surrounded him with talent.
Yeah.
Wade pointed out, just stacking the team with him, and that's a good way to go about it.
It's how you help a quarterback. If you look at the Titans, who have a good record because they've been gifted to play in one of the poverty fucking divisions in football. Their offense still doesn't look good. They gave up Brown because they didn't want to pay him. You take a guy like Brown, who was on that run first offense, with Tannehill as his quarterback, didn't really have a chance to be the best version of himself. And in Philadelphia, him and Devontae, it's hard. They have so much speed, and speed kills. It's an offensive league, and they've adjusted accordingly. And plus those gentlemen from Mississippi are very good defenders as well. Shout out to that NFL powerhouse.
I'll just wait till we get to college. I'm going to bust Wade's balls about that because I noticed something. So my number 1 hasn't changed from the last time is Buffalo. I still think that Josh Allen and company are like the top dogs. Vaughn on defense, and they still look good. I mean, they've had slip-ups like everyone else. I mean, they lost to the Dolphins, and then, but they've also come back on like the Ravens and everything else. So I'm still pissed about last year's playoffs with the Chiefs. That really bummed me the fuck out. But I think that's one reason why they went and got Vaughn. They're trying to just make sure the defense doesn't collapse this year when they go into the postseason. And they look good, man. They just look good.
Yeah, they're my number 1 as well. And they're so smart. They have Vaughn on a snap count. They're only going to play him a full game in the regular season if it's a big deal, like against Kansas City, where the seeding matchup, with the seeding mattered there, right? When you take that type of load off of an all-time great like Von Miller, and you unleash him at the end of the game, in pass rushing scenarios, it's like watching him, early in his career all over again. Again, they're another team. They have Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis has developed. They have a decent tight end. They have a decent third wideout, and so on and so forth. They're built the way that you help quarterbacks in today's NFL is you put talent around them and you don't just stack it on the offensive line. And they do have a good line as well. To me, Josh Allen is the best quarterback in football right now. I'm not comparing resumes. I'm just talking about how they're playing.
Yeah.
He's the human cheat code. He is John Elway, but bigger, maybe a little bit worse arm.
Do you think he's bigger? Like, Wave, when you see Allen, does he seem like he's bigger than Elway? I don't know. Maybe it's just because I grew up thinking Elway is like this larger than life guy.
I think Allen's definitely tough.
Man, Elway always seemed bigger, and Allen looks like a midget almost compared to him. But I don't know their size. Like it's.
Allen's pretty tall. Allen's pretty tall. Allen's definitely taller.
John Elway was 6'3".
Yeah.
And
what is Allen, 6'6"?
Josh Allen is 6'5", and I don't know what Elway weighed, but Josh Allen is clocking in between 235 and 240, depending on what I'm seeing online. I don't think Elway weighed that much.
That's crazy, man. Maybe it's just the pads and stuff too, because as time has gone on, the gear has gotten a little bit more slimmer. Maybe McCaffrey was like an influence on that because he liked to take shit off.
Was he the one who said, "I'm slow enough. I can't have the pads slow me down
right.
more"? Legend, absolute legend.
Wave, who you got at number 1, sir?
Yeah, it's the Bills, and I think it's not. I think they're the best team. I don't even think it's that close, to be honest. Like,
yeah.
I think if they're playing their best, I don't think anybody can beat them. Even like the game they lost to Miami. If you look at the stats in that game, Buffalo way outgained them. Like they dominated that game, and I think just a lot of really fluky things happen.
Just kind of a weird throw. A lot of fluky things happened, and then they just kind of shot themselves in the foot.
Did they have a couple of turnovers or something?
I think that was that game too, where Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle both had 150 yards and a touchdown. I think they had some really deep. They connected on their deep shots, and I think everything went perfectly in that game for Miami. But yeah, I think. Yeah, the Bills are just, like I said, the Eagles were a complete team. The Bills are also a complete team with a way better quarterback.
Yeah.
So if they stay healthy,
I think that's it, man.
Yeah, I'll be pretty surprised if they don't win the Super Bowl. I know the NFL playoffs, anything can happen, but this is kind of a weird year. There aren't that many great teams in the NFL this year. I think there's really only 2 or 3 teams that are great teams.
I agree.
So I think if the Bills stay healthy, I'll be really surprised if anyone beats them in the playoffs.
I agree. And they do you think their coaching staff is an asset to them? Because they seem like they're always well coached. They don't make bad challenges, or if they do, I've seen them make iffy challenges, but it's like the risk reward is so high that why wouldn't you in the clock management? It's weird because to your point, they have a loss and Philadelphia doesn't. But if those two teams played, I'm betting the Bills with almost zero hesitation.
Yeah, probably because they have a little bit more experience now. I mean, they haven't got to the Super Bowl, but they've gotten in the playoffs and pretty deep in the playoffs, so they have that a little bit of experience there with that.
Yeah. I think if those two teams played in the Super Bowl, I think the Bills would be a 4 or 5 point favorite.
Yeah, I agree.
I just think they're better.
Yeah, they feel like they are the. It feels like Hurts is the poor man's version of Josh Allen, and Hurts is having a good year. I think for them too, when they played Miami in subsequent weeks, they had a lot of injuries in the secondary. And I know injuries are an excuse that any team can make, but when you're a really good team and guys are coming back, you can look at that. It doesn't feel like an excuse. It feels like the troops are being rallied. So they get their stud cornerback this week. I think they said that they're not going to play him full time. And that's their luxury. They don't have to play. If they have a star player who's hurt, they can nurse him back. If they have a star player who's a little bit older, they can mitigate his, how many snaps he plays. They're just in such a position of strength. And they've built this roster so well over several seasons. It's just masterful.
Well, I've chosen 4 games that I want you guys to pick the winners to. You can give the scores if you want. But before we get to that list, I do want to give predictions for the Jags and Denver game. So as Denver comes into London and invade their infectious, great offense, what is your score for that game? Poet, you go.
Is Russ playing? Do we know?
He's planning on it.
They haven't announced it, but it looks like he's going to play.
Okay. Denver 15, Jacksonville 21 or 24.
Okay. Wave.
So this is one of those games, like everything's pointing against Denver. Like I think all the fans are almost kind of hoping we lose so that Hackett will get fired. And
Oh, fuck.
and I think for exactly that reason, the Broncos are going to win. They're just going to do just enough to keep Hackett around and just keep torturing us.
Yeah.
So I think Denver's going to win. I'll say like 19-16.
May I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Would you fire Hackett right now?
I don't know. I don't think I would fire him mid-season. Like mid-season year one. Like you had, like the only time I can ever think of that happening was with Urban Meyer when he had like
That
3
was
off the
crazy.
field.
Yeah, that was.
He had all those scandals off the field. Like I feel like short of that, like only giving someone 8 games is tough. I don't think he should get more than a season if they don't turn it around. But
Okay.
and plus, there's no one on the staff really who I think would even be qualified to be English coach.
If you gave it to Evero, that would just make it more enticing for someone to steal him from you anyway. Is what I thought of.
I mean, I wouldn't be mad if they fired him. Like I wouldn't go on the board and throw a fit about it. But
so you could I guess what I'm driving at is it's got to be frustrating knowing that, like, hey, I wouldn't typically fire a head coach, but he's so bad. I understand it.
In general, I would never even fire a coach after 1 season. I would always give a coach 2 seasons. I think Denver is kind of a unique exception right now because when we got Russell Wilson, we thought we were going to get him for like 5 or 6 or 7 good years, and now it's looking like if we're lucky, maybe we'll have 2 or 3 years where he can play. So you can't really wait on the coach to figure it out for 2 or 3 years. So I mean, when John Fox was here, he was in Denver for 4 years, won the AFC West 4 times, made the second round of the playoffs all 4 years, and made a Super Bowl, and they fired him because Peyton was on his last legs and they couldn't wait around. So
yeah,
it's kind of the same with Russ. You can't really wait for a coach to figure it out.
Yeah, no, I feel you. And plus, he was trying to get, if memory serves, he was trying to get out to Chicago because he was butthurt about something. And you never heard of John Fox ever again doing well, and the Broncos rallied and won a Super Bowl. So
That's
get
right.
fucked, Fox. I was just wanted to pick because I was one of the few guys who wanted Vance Joseph to get a second year because I think that continuity and stability matters. But I guess for the first time in my life, I'm like, yeah, I could understand firing a guy after his first years. You know, Steve Wilkes, I think, got fired. Him and Rosen got booted, and then Clint, what's his face, and Murray came in, and things got better, and now it's going down. But sorry for the digression. I just wanted to pick your brain.
Nah, I mean, my difference with that is that if we win against the Jags, 2 things. If we win, it probably prolongs the pain. 2, if we actually go in and wipe the fucking floor with them, which we should have been doing all year long, that might change my tune a little bit in terms of our progress as a team and as coaching. But as it stands right now, there isn't really much progress going on. And that's sort of my problem with keeping him till the end of the year. Because if Evero takes over and the team still does the same, it doesn't really matter. It just helps our draft position.
We don't have a first-round pick.
Yeah.
Well, true, but either way.
Do you have a third rounder?
That's another thing that really bothers me.
Can root for a draft pick this year?
But I just can't really see holding on to him if the team's just not showing any progress. And I think with all the talk about what's going on, maybe in the locker room with Russ and everything, that just doesn't help either. But anyway, my score prediction for this is I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm along with Poet here. I think it's going to be 21-13 Jags. I just don't think we're going to have enough offense to do this. And the Jags really, they're kind of like us in some ways, only they play a little bit better than we do. They just aren't winning many games. All right. So the 4 games or matchups I have, and we'll just go through them real quickly. Baltimore at Tampa Bay. I'll let Poet, you go ahead, choose which one you think is going to win that ball game.
I'll take Baltimore by a field goal.
Wave.
Yeah, Tampa's just been gross this year. Like I can't pick them to win a game right now. I think I'll take Baltimore by a touchdown. Lamar's actually kind of been struggling for the last few weeks, but I
He's
guess
doing
that
too
game's
much.
tonight. I think it's maybe actually hasn't started quite yet, but
It might be Thursday night. Yeah, it's Thursday
yeah,
night.
they're playing tonight actually. So I guess we'll see. But I don't know. I know Lamar's been struggling lately, but Brady is done for. I think. So I don't think I can pick them to be the good team. So I'm gonna say Baltimore by a touchdown.
Surprised I didn't get a Brady joke in there from Wave. He's always busting my balls about fucking Brady.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think as far as like overall play, even though Baltimore struggles a little bit, I think they're just a better team than Tampa. Brady probably should have stayed retired, banged his wife, and pupped out a few more puppies. He doesn't belong back in the NFL right now. I think he doesn't get the hint that he's done. Some quarterbacks are like that, and other ones know when to get out. New England at the Jets. Poet.
I think that quarterback controversy just killed Mac Jones' psyche. I also think it was one of the most unforced errors I've ever seen Belichick make. Zach Wilson is horrible, and they're winning games in spite of him. I don't know how the Jets have won 3 games, let alone the ones that they have. I'm going to take the Jets by 10 points because they'll block a field goal or a punt and return it for a touchdown or something. That's just what they're doing this season.
Wave.
yeah. I think the Jets are probably the worst 5-2 team of all time. If you look at their
Yes.
schedule. They've played a lot of backup quarterbacks, and they've played teams with injuries. Like they've had a really, I feel like their schedule has been very lucky for them. And now they're facing another team that has like quarterback controversy, and no one knows how they're going to do. I don't know. I just can't see the Jets being 6-2. And I think
It feels
Belichick.
wrong.
I think Belichick's too good a coach to let that happen. I think the Patriots will get lucky and win by a field goal. I just can't see the Jets being 6-2.
Yeah, I probably would agree with Wave to a lot of this, but I think the issue is going to be this is in New York. And I don't know, man. There's just some teams, and the Jets are one of them, where you guys have mentioned that they're just really bad, but like they got some fucking horseshoe that rammed up their ass and they're winning ball games. So it's like, I don't know. I just see them pulling this out. It's going to be close. Obviously, they're always a dogfight between those two rivals.
Yeah.
And,
Another thing on the Jets, their best player, Brees Hall, just tore his ACL too. So
Yeah.
that's a good point. That could affect us a lot. Who
And
came
they
in
did
after they went out?
Robinson, they got him from
they
Jacksonville.
traded for James Robinson, but I don't think he's probably going to be ready to play much this week. So
Yeah.
that's going to be tough for the Brees Hall. He's by far their best player. So that's
Yeah, he's pretty electric.
going to be tough for them.
Giants at Seattle.
Giants. They are a good football team, and that defense is sick. They have Saquon Barkley. I think that Seattle's been running on a high of catharsis, getting rid of Russ, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I think that the Giants will prevail, even though I don't. It's at Seattle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, damn it. I'll still go with the Giants, but I don't feel good about it. By touchdown.
So I have the Giants in my top 5, so I feel like I probably should pick them, but it's tough to win in Seattle, and I think they're trying to like win in spite of Russ this year. I think he's like that's really motivating them.
You're right.
Like I think
they're trying to tell Russ, "Fuck you, we don't need you, man."
I'm gonna say the Seahawks win by a point. I think it'll go either way. I think Seattle will win maybe on a last second field goal or something. It'll be close, but
I'm gonna
maybe
push.
the Giants
I'm
fall
gonna
back to
push.
earth a little bit.
It's gonna be a tie. I can't choose one. Okay, the last game, the Aaron Rodgers at the Josh Allens.
I am going to take the Bills. I will say this for Aaron Rodgers: he's top 10 in touchdown completions. I don't think he's washed. I think what he's learned is that when you get paid $50 million and you alienate everybody, it's hard to keep a good wide receiver, and you reap what you sow. But Josh Allen is the quarterback god, and he will not be defied this Sunday. I'll take the Bills by 17.
I just checked. The Bills are an 11-point favorite. This has got to be the first time in Aaron Rodgers' career he's been a double-digit underdog in a game. Like maybe his first year starting, he was against somebody, but yeah, like I said about the Bills, they're just by far the best team in the league. Like Green Bay keeps it within 2 touchdowns, I'll be shocked. Like, they don't have any receivers. I think Rodgers already has a foot out the door like Brady. Like, I think this might be his last year. Like, maybe he'll come back next year, but I think that's a team that's falling apart. Like I said, of course, this will probably be one of those dumb games where the Packers win because no one sees it coming. But
if
I don't
if
know.
the Packers win this game, it will be fucking amazing. I will say that.
I'm
Hell
gonna
with
say
the
the Bills.
frozen
I'm gonna say the
over.
Bills by 14.
Yeah, I think you guys are right. I think Buffalo is just gonna. This is gonna be an easy game for them. I think. As you said, Wade, they're the strongest team out there right now, and they're just gonna really hammer Aaron all day. It's in Buffalo. It's not gonna be nice. The fans aren't gonna be nice, and it's gonna be crazy. So I say Buffalo at least by 2 scores easily. Defense will probably harass Rodgers all day. Before we get into the college stuff, I do want to bring this up just to get your opinion on it real quick. So apparently, after the Panthers played the Buccaneers, a couple of the officials came into the tunnel and got with Mike Evans and got autographs from him, which is a big no-no from the NFL. That's why I was kind of laughing about the cheating thing that Jada brought up, because he kept saying that Brady's losing because he's not cheating. I said, well, but are they? So I was referencing this fucking article.
Yeah.
What is your thoughts? I know players did. Like, I know that, like, when Peyton was playing with us, I think it was one of the KC guys that came and got like a jersey or something from Madden or something. But what is your thoughts on officials getting autographs and stuff?
If it happened and they're denying that it happened, and Mike Evans said it didn't happen, if it happened, you have to fire them. The union should.
It's actually on video. I'm just gonna say it's on video. They did.
Okay, I mean, then it is what it is. They should be fired. I mean, what does that look like? If you went up to a sports fan and you said, "Hey, if you went up to someone who wasn't a sports fan and you asked them if an official was asking for an autograph from someone that they were presiding over, what does that look like to you? It would look like corruption. There's a famous quote, and I forget who they attribute to. The mere illusion of corruption is essentially the same thing as corruption. It's a horrible look. I can't believe that they'd be dumb enough to do it, let alone on camera. The NFL pays them a lot of money. Half of them are lawyers, by the way. Buy it on eBay like everybody else, you asshole. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, I was reading about this. I saw something on Twitter. I think they were saying like their official explanation for it, like why the NFL cleared them. I think they were saying like that Mike Evans was giving the referee like the phone number to his golf coach or something. Like, he wasn't signing his autograph. He was like giving him his like golf coach's phone number because like they had talked about like golf tips or something. So
Oh God.
that's just one of those things that almost seems so far fetched. Like, maybe it is true. Like, how do you come up with that story as like your cover story? So like maybe that's what happened, but like,
Yeah, I mean,
do agree.
I'm sure I've seen players and coaches talk with refs all the time in good fun, and maybe you're right. Maybe it is something like that, but it's like 2 of them were with him, so they all play golf. I mean,
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's one of those things that you can't have anything that even looks bad. Like,
right?
Julio Jones was it Julio Jones or no? Calvin Ridley got suspended for the whole year just for betting on his own team when he was injured.
On the
couldn't
app,
even
on the NFL's app too. Their
right.
sponsor.
And like that probably didn't affect any games because he was injured and not playing and betting for his own team. But the NFL had to set the example that you can't even have anything look like it's fishy. So if they're going to go by that standard, they probably had to at least suspend that ref for a year, if not fire him, just for the look of it.
Yeah, it looks horrible, and I think the other thing too is like, there's just a standpoint of it. The fact that it happened on a player that plays with Tom Brady is the worst look, because everybody has said, rightly or wrongly, that Tom Brady gets special treatment wherever he goes, and things like that. I think the other thing is like, I hadn't heard the golf explanation. That is so bizarre that maybe it is true. I mean, what? Good God.
All right. Well, we're going to get into the college football now. And I had a topic I wanted to talk to you guys about, but I don't know. It might kind of drag on because it's a serious topic. It's about CTE, about this woman suing the NCAA because her husband died of head trauma from way back when. If you guys want to talk about it, we can. I want to make sure to get the other stuff that Wade brought up about the college football polls and stuff in here.
Why
So
don't
if
we
you
save
want,
that one for the next time that we have Wave on here?
Okay, we'll do that. All right, so Wave wanted to talk college football polls, and when I went and looked at the rankings, guess who's at number 23? Yeah, Tulane. I just said that's why he wanted me to talk about it, because Tulane's there.
First time since 1998 they've been ranked.
Hell yeah.
Really? It's been that long? Wow.
They went undefeated with Sean King in 1998, and that was their last ranked season.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, so I don't really argue too much with polls. I know there's one thing that Wave and I always disagree on, and he makes some pretty good points about why it is, but then I think I made good points of why it isn't. I don't know Poet's stance on this, but I've always hated ranking teams until week 5. I still hate it, like with a passion. And part of that is because we see every year when these teams start playing that some of these ranked teams, they lose games they shouldn't, and they don't drop very far. So, for instance, for Wave, your team, Tulane or Mississippi State, if you guys start at the bottom of the rankings, and let's say Tulane goes undefeated, I don't even know what their record is right now, but if they go undefeated, the best they might do is up to maybe 15, 14. If they remain that way, like, I don't know if they're going to have a real serious shot of a playoff. Whereas if you take like a Bama, and I know they already lost a game, I think, or maybe they haven't. But if they lose a game, they're going to drop maybe 3 or 4 spots, but then they're going to have time to make that up and get back into the playoffs. So I've always kind of hated that, where we're giving these other teams, even though they're generally better schools and everything, and they have legacy, I just hate like giving them these high rankings because it's really kind of an unfair advantage to teams under them. I'm not like who is it? Who's the Orange? The guy that's always the Texas guy.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, he gets pretty crazy about some of his bullshit. But,
yeah.
I'm not like him in terms of like, I don't think that you take the worst team in the polls and bring them all the way up to number 1. But I just think that by week 5, if you actually start doing whatever rankings affect the playoffs, wait till then to start doing that. You can still have power rankings, which is kind of what they do, but I don't know. I really hate that like the teams that are already at the top don't lose much ground unless they lose to say like Oklahoma. They really getting fucked all over the place. So I don't care if they drop out. But Wave, you want to expand on this and your thoughts? Because I know you kind of have always disagreed with me on this.
So I have three counterpoints to you on this.
Okay.
First of all, the only poll that really matters now is the college football playoff poll, and that poll doesn't come out until like week 8 or 9 for the first time. So the AP poll now, that poll doesn't really mean anything anymore because it doesn't actually affect the playoffs. And my second point is I think preseason rankings are good just for like the popularity of the sport and like the national interest, because like it drives conversation, like it gets fan bases excited. Like let's say I'm a Mississippi State fan. Let's say we play Alabama in week 2. It's a more exciting game for the fan base if it's the number 1 team in the country, coming to play in week 2. And so I think, just from the excitement standpoint, you have that. And I think my third point, most important point, the argument you make a lot is a team like Alabama starts at number 1. So if they lose, they'll still be ranked pretty highly. Whereas like a team like Tulane, they start unranked and they're kind of, behind the 8 ball. Like, I guess my question to you would be, do you not think that even let's say they did it your way and there was no rankings until week 5?
Right.
Don't you think that sports writers would still like be biased toward Alabama in their head? Like even if there was no poll saying Alabama was number 1, like don't you think there would still be more bias like in support of Alabama than for Tulane? Like I don't think Tulane would have entered the poll in the top 10 if there had been no rankings, I think they'd still be in the 20s. Like,
Yeah, no, you're right, and but let's I don't even have the rankings in front of me, but I don't know.
actually,
Let's
they
just
have a
say a
team.
team like, I don't know, Michigan State. Okay, so if Michigan State is at like 10, but let's say they start at like 15, and it's just really difficult. Like the one thing I am glad about is 2026 they're going to expand the playoffs, which is good. So
Yeah,
that helps a lot. But if you have a team, like I don't care if the journalists and broadcasters want to talk highly about these teams because there's reasons for that. Sabian's one of the best coaches in college football, and the teams are usually very good. Now you said something about the college playoff polls coming up later in the year, but isn't that affected by what's going on with the current rankings?
it could be, but I have another point on that. The first year they did the college football playoff was in 2014, and that was Dak Prescott's junior year at Mississippi State when he broke out. Mississippi State started that year unranked, so they weren't in any of the preseason top 25. When the first college football playoff poll came out, they were number one
Right.
because they had beaten LSU, Auburn, and a couple of other teams. So I don't. I think it always works itself out. Like I think if you're like a Power Five team and you go undefeated, like even if you start unranked, like look at like TCU. I think like this year, I think they started the season unranked and they're undefeated and they're up to number 7 right now.
Yeah.
So
I
I
think
think it I
that
think
it
it works itself out. I don't think there's ever been an example of a team like I know I can never tell if you're being serious when you post this online, but you always brought up that you're Marshall when undefeated to like bolster this argument. Like I don't think Marshall is one of the 4 best teams that year, even though they're undefeated. So like I don't think
Well,
there's ever been
I
a team
think
that was
part of the problem is that we go back to, you remember obviously Boise State. Okay, so they go into a bowl game playing Oklahoma and they actually win that ball game. So I think the only thing that I agree with Orange in is that it'd be nice to see some of these teams that do like a Marshall, or let's say Tulane goes undefeated. Fuck yeah, I'd like to see Tulane in the playoffs. They may not beat anybody, but I'd like to see it.
no, I am totally in favor of the playoffs expanding. I think this year is a great example of it because if you look in the SEC alone, Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia are all really good teams.
Right.
Ohio State and Michigan are both undefeated, and that's already 5 teams that could win that could beat anybody. Like out in
yeah,
the
I
Pac-12,
so
USC could beat anybody.
in Clemson, people are
Clemson,
still debating how good Clemson is.
yeah,
I'll say this. I think that what we've seen is a flawed system get better. I know that the official poll doesn't come out until deep into the season. I do think I think you both are somewhat right in or pretty right in this regard. There are certain schools that are always going to have a reputation that bolsters them. Like Notre Dame is like the king of that meme, right?
right.
They will always, until they get blown out by the first good team that they play, and even sometimes they'll take the second one, they'll be pumped up. As a Wildcats fan, like what I've learned is with a lot of the sports writers and whatever poll it is, you build gravitas. So a couple years ago, when we cracked our way into the top 25 again, we beat a couple ranked teams, but we didn't really get that deep into the that high into the rate of the seedings and the rankings. This season, if we beat the Old Miss, we actually might, and we stayed undefeated, we probably would be a top 4 team. So I do think that there is skepticism by anyone who makes the rankings, whether they matter or they don't. Even though the ones that don't matter, I do think inform the one that does in week 8 or 9. It's your reputation matters a lot, and so there was the year that people were arguing Alabama shouldn't have gotten in because they had that one loss, and then they
Right.
went out and they won the national championship. And then that was the rebuttal. See, there's only 4 real good schools most of the time. And if it's a name brand school, they should go in. On the flip side, the Sooners have got the benefit of that of the doubt several times doing that and got absolutely killed. On the flip side of that, the Bearcats made it in last season and they got absolutely killed. One of the issues with college football is sometimes you have seasons like this where it's beautiful and it's wide open and the expanded playoffs matter. And then other years, like last season, it was a 2-team race really the whole way. And so the argument that you two have, I feel like one side is going to be better, have a stronger argument for each individual year based off the strength of those teams. But ultimately, go ahead, sorry.
That's what I was just saying on Kentucky real quick. Like, you're saying like maybe they're a little underranked because, of their
Not anymore,
reputation.
but I felt that we were. But now I feel
Even
like we get the
still,
respect.
they only have the Ole Miss loss so far, right?
Yeah. Wait, no, actually, let me check. I've
I have the rankings up.
Oh, cool.
They're 5-2, so I guess they've lost
Yeah,
twice.
I
But
thought we dropped another one, and it's
but had Kentucky beaten Ole Miss and beaten Tennessee and beaten Georgia and gone to the SEC championship and beaten Alabama, they would have
they'd have
gone to the
gotten in.
playoff.
Yeah, they would have to, and I think that even if they got to the SEC championship game and lost, they probably still would have gotten in if they had beaten Georgia, Tennessee, and Ole Miss.
That's why I say it always works itself out because a lot of these teams always lose a game or two toward the end of the year, and they're usually like a lot of years. It's hard to even
I
find
call
four.
that luck, though.
And I think this might be the year it doesn't happen. Like I said, there's 3 good teams in the SEC. There's 2 good teams in the Big Ten. There's like 3 good teams in the Pac-12. Like Oregon, USC, and UCLA are all good. Clemson's good. TCU's undefeated. Oklahoma State's good. Like there could be like 9 or 10 teams this year that have an argument. So I think this season's going to be the best argument ever to go 12 teams.
Didn't we have that one year where was it LSU and Auburn tied at the end? Like they were dual champions or something, some weird shit like that.
Back in the BCS days, that used to happen, I think, because like
Yeah.
AP would declare a champion,
Yeah.
and the big and like
geez.
it used to be some weird stuff like that. I'm kind of glad they have a more like uniform playoff now. Because I hate Ole Miss. If you go in Ole Miss Stadium, they have 3 national championship banners in the '50s, and they're all from like some random like rinky-dink newspaper who ranked them #1 at the end of the season. And they put a banner up for a championship. Like college football used to be so stupid. There'd be like 4 teams every year claim the national championship because some poll put them #1. So I'm glad
Yeah,
there's a more official system for that now.
and it feels like because it feels like now teams get a fairer shot. But I will say, like for the Kentucky argument, there are some teams where, for Kentucky, if you beat this team and this team and this team and this team, you would have got it in. Whereas maybe what I'd call name brand school, they could have dropped one of those games. Some years, maybe even 2 and gotten in. The thing of it is that college football, exactly what you talked about, the perception of rankings in college football is so bad dating back to BCS and before that a lot of fans are just cynical. And any discrepancy, any 50-50 thing that you could find is going to feel like an outrage because of it. So I read, I want to say last week, that they're trying to speed it up and get the playoff system a year earlier in 2025. And so that'll be interesting too. That's going to make so much more money on gambling. And that's really what they're doing.
And I have like one more point on why the playoffs are so good. Like one of the reasons you see with the 4-team playoff that it's like always Alabama, always Ohio State, like it's always the same 4 or 5 teams. I think a big reason for that is because there's only 4 playoff spots. So like all these top recruits know if they want to like play for a national championship, they have to go to one of those schools because there's only 4 spots. Once there's 12 playoff spots, I think you'll see the recruits start to spread out a little more because then teams like USC or like even Notre Dame's in the top 12 a lot. Like even like if say I think like Kentucky goes 11-1 one year, they can look at recruits and say, "Hey, we were a top 12 team last year. If we do that again, you're in the playoffs." So I
Yeah,
think that
and that's what
I
you
think
just
that'll help.
articulated is really important because that's the argument that on Fox Sports Joel Klatt made for teams like Nebraska. Shout out to Abe, who feel like
Nebraska
they're screwed.
sucks.
They do. They are very good at losing football games in a myriad of ways. They are comprehensive losers. They are some of the greatest losers of all time.
Nebraska is booty cheeks.
They are booty cheeks, and not in that sweet stripper way. They are gas station booty cheeks. But there's something to be said for if you're in a Power 5 conference and you're a brand name school, and they still are, that there's only so many coaching spots, and so you'll be able to find a talented coach and might be able to build your program up that way. There are a lot of people who are optimistic that the expansion of the playoffs will actually be good for for not just colleges, but young up and coming coaches as well. And so that's just a tertiary thought, but
Right.
it did pop into my head.
And plus, they're going to have like home campuses for those playoff games, and that's just going to be so exciting. Like imagine like Alabama having to go up to Ohio State and play in the snow
Oh,
in December
Jesus.
in a playoff game. Like that would just be so fun to watch.
Yeah, it
Saban will
will.
hate that. Okay, so I've got 3 games I want to get some predictions on. UVA and Miami, just kidding. UVA will probably lose. I'm surprised we beat Georgia Tech last week. That was like a shocker to me. But anyway, Ohio State versus Penn State. That's going to be a good game. It's in Penn State, I believe. So, Poet, pick the winner.
Ohio State by 7. I think it's going to be a nail biter, and Penn State usually tries to get up for Ohio State, but Ohio State might be the best team in the country.
Wave.
I'm going to say Ohio State by 3 touchdowns.
Oh,
spicy!
Hot take.
Damn, not even close.
Michigan beat the crap out of Penn State this week, so I think Penn State might be a little fraudulent. I guess maybe they'll be more motivated this week after that, but I think Ohio State's the best team also, and I think they're just going to kill everybody this year. I don't think it'll be close.
I want to see them play Georgia. That's the game that I want to see the most.
Oh, they'll get their chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they will.
I do think Ohio State will win. 3 touchdowns. That's pushing it, but it's possible. But I'm going to say probably at least by 10. At least win by 10. Kentucky at Tennessee.
Kentucky will have its vengeance. Kentucky by 10. Kentucky by 10.
Oh, my God. Whoa.
Kentucky will have its vengeance.
I do think Kentucky will keep it closer than people think. You know, Tennessee had the big win over Alabama, and they played in nobody last week and beat the crap out of them. So, like, I think like Tennessee probably is due to have a letdown game. I don't know. Kentucky's pretty decent this year. I don't think they're a great. Like, I don't think they're a great team. Like, you know, they're pretty good, but I think I'll say Tennessee wins by like 8 points. It'll be close, but I think Tennessee pulls it out.
Yeah, I don't know super a lot about Tennessee or even Kentucky. In my heart, I'm going Kentucky, but reality comes in, and it's got to be Tennessee. That hooker is a hooker, and he can play.
That hooker's about to be a high draft pick too. It looks like.
Yeah,
It wouldn't shock me if Kentucky won. This is the kind of game you see.
Hey, it
where
won't
teams-
hurt my feelings. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
really a Tennessee fan.
We
so-
also not to be that fan because the losses are what they are, but we could very easily be undefeated this season.
You should have beaten Ole Miss. That was
I was
the
just
game.
I was dying at the end of that game. I was dying. I was.
And the last game is Oklahoma State at Kansas State. And I was kind of disappointed with Kansas State last week because I was kind of, after their beatdown of Oklahoma, I was like, hey, got something going on here.
I'll take Oklahoma State. A touchdown. I don't know what to make of Kansas State. I wish I had a better take than that, but I don't.
Yeah.
So Tulane beat Kansas State this year, like one of the big upsets of the year in college football. So I kind of need Kansas State to keep winning to help their resume a little bit. So I'm just gonna be a homer there, and I'll say Kansas State wins by a touchdown. Just keep
But
helping
I mean,
Tulane's
you
resume
made the
there.
point about Kentucky possibly beating Tennessee, and I think that that's possible with Kansas State too, because there are times that Oklahoma State this year hasn't looked like super great. So it's the possibility is there.
I think in the Big 12, you could take Oklahoma State, Texas, Kansas State, TCU, like throw all 4 of those teams in a bag, and like any of those teams could beat anybody. Like I don't think there's really a clear separation in the Big 12. I think at the end of the year, every team in that conference could have 2 losses. Like I think they're all going to beat each other. So yeah, I think Kansas State can win that game just because I don't think there's really a clear great team in that conference.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you all for joining me this evening. It's been a blast, and
Thanks for having us.
we'll be
Thank you.
doing
Yeah,
this
it's been
again in
awesome.
another month. So, Wave, if you want to join us again, you're free to do so.
Yeah, we have
Go ahead.
we have a baby due in about 4 or 5 weeks, so we'll see if I'm free or not.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Congratulations,
congratulations.
sir.
So might or might not have any freedom ever again, but we'll see.
Oh, man,
well, you
that's-
said that
that's
after you
awesome.
got married, so you're okay.
That's true.
But I'm happy for you, man.
Congratulations! I'm now officially a style uncle. The Style Brothers.
That's right, style uncle.
The Style Uncle. That's really awesome. I bet yours on pins and needles, man. Congrats.
Well, for me, later on this evening, I'll be on Samurai's channel. We're doing a versus episode between Friday the 13th, Part 6, and Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. So we'll be there with a lot of special guests, some directors, as well as famous YouTube people. So if you guys are into that kind of thing, be checking it out, mainly for you watching us. Tomorrow night, or let's see, no, today's Wednesday. No, what is today? Thursday? So it's tomorrow night. I'll be doing a show with Big Bad Wolf from Entertainment Talk Nation, and we'll be talking werewolf films for the Halloween season. And then Saturday evening, I'll be on the Sci-Fi Centuries channel talking Castlevania seasons 1 and 2. So my co-host, Edgar Allan Poet, special guest CJ Wave. Stick around, guys. We're going to close this out, but I want to say goodbye to off camera. And for everyone else, thank you for checking us out. Check out MetalTavernRadio.com. Check out the YouTube channel of Metal Tavern Radio. And thank you very much for checking this video out. And we'll catch you later, folks.
Later, everyone.
Later.
Yeah.